Good morning and welcome to Innovate and Caffeinate. We are so glad you could join us this morning. Before I introduce today's speaker, I do have a quick IC announcement to make. We are going to return starting in October to having these gatherings online just once a month. We decided to try to pivot a little bit back to our original format, which was once a month and in person. While we're not able to go in person quite yet, still because of COVID and our community guidelines and guidelines put forth by the governor, we are looking forward to going back to in person and actually getting to our host locations and enjoying each other's company, but we're just not quite there yet. So once a month, probably for the rest of the year, and we're going to still rotate between our partners in Hopkins County, Christian County, and also our partners in Henderson. So just stay tuned to your local community's Facebook page, or if you haven't subscribed to their newsletter, subscribe to their newsletter. And if you don't know how to do that, or you would like to subscribe, feel free to message us or make a comment on this post and we'll make sure you get on the newsletter. So now, without further ado, I am so excited to announce our speaker today. He is a Murray native and a veteran and minority-owned small business. He is a big believer in supporting community and other small businesses. I am pleased to introduce Mr. Scott Allen, CEO and President of Wisdom Tree Technologies.
Let me give you a little bit of brief background on how Wisdom Tree Technologies Incorporated got started. As you know, because we worked together in the same building at one time, Wisdom Tree is a graduated 8A company, U.S. Small Business Administration, Chapter 8A, which means minority-owned business, socially and economically disadvantaged business. Have the pleasure of being, believe it or not, the enrolled member of Native American Indian tribe, the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. So we're in that program for 9 years, and I'll tell you why that's important for entrepreneurs specifically in just a moment. But we're also veteran-owned, service-disabled veteran-owned, and Native American-owned, obviously. So being a retired military officer, when I was on active duty working at the Pentagon, I wanted to come home to Kentucky, where I'm from, and start a business and put that money back into the local economy. The payroll taxes, the services, the support services, legal, administrative, etc., and grow, a future for my children as well, because they were small at the time. So, being from Ballard County originally, graduated from Ballard County High School, and going to the University of Kentucky, this is home. So, with that vision, like every entrepreneur, you got to have a plan. So I put a business plan together and then I planned my work and worked my plan, as they say. And lo and behold, here we are almost 15 years later. So we're a little bit different than most entrepreneurs you probably have spoken to, in that we do almost exclusive federal contracting. And that's why I mentioned the 8A status earlier, because in federal contracting, there are certain sole source and certain set-aside contracts that are very lucrative that are just for minority-owned companies, or another category, service-disabled veteran-owned companies, or another category is like woman-owned small businesses. So with that, and knowing that landscape and speaking that language for over 25 years, we decided to come home to Murray and start a business doing federal contracting, with our first customer being one of our old bosses in the government. We were lucky when we got here to Murray, and this is how we met you. There is right here where I sit is Heritage Hall on the campus of Murray State University. There's actually a business incubator here, a business innovation center, or more formally known, Regional Business Incubation or Innovation Center, the RBIC. So we were given one little office, 2 guys, one little contract, and we started off the business that way in 2009. Business was formally established in 2007, but we really got our first contract and started getting some traction in 2009. We've been in this building since then. We've become an anchor tenant as we've grown, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. As we've grown, we have expanded our footprint, if you will. And we've enmeshed ourselves in the local community and with Murray State specifically quite well. For example, we've given literally dozens of jobs to current and former Murray State students, put a lot of them into the federal workforce, help them. I teach classes here, undergraduate classes at Murray State University. We provide internships to anybody that would like one here at Murray State University, specifically if they're interested in national security or government type of work. We've got 2 interns right now active. And we just established, for example, an endowment scholarship called the Jerry D. Allen Memorial Scholarship here at Murray State for the children or grandchildren of veterans to take advantage of. So we believe in giving back to the community, the vision that I started out with, to be home and to grow a business and to put that business money and that business profit back into the community has become a reality. As a matter of fact, my banker tells me to quit being so generous sometimes, but it's a happy problem. So that's an executive summary of how we got here and how we got started. There's a lot of course specifics and a lot of growing pains and a lot of, like any business or any other entrepreneur, a lot of dangers and landmines along the way, right? Not to mention at least healthcare costs, taxes, sequestrations, pandemics. We're quite fortunate in that of most of the peer group that I started with as a small business entrepreneur in this market space back in 2007, let's say 20 of us, there's maybe 2 or 3 of us left. So it's a testament to our adaptability, number one, and our good fortune, number 2. So that's how Wisdom Tree Technologies got started. We started with 2 individuals. We currently have about 150. We fluctuate between 100 and 200 employees at any given time. And that actually makes us one of the largest businesses in the city. A lot of people don't even know we exist, which is okay because we do the type of work where we don't really advertise locally, or we do local type of work. And we have done some state work. We're doing some work for the Kentucky Army National Guard and the Kentucky Air Guard. But Wisdom Tree is basically a defense contracting company that provides intelligence analysis, what's called intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, i.e. flying drones around and I'm trying to think of the proper word, RPVs, remotely piloted vehicles around Iraq and Afghanistan, to doing computer work, to doing healthcare and IT work, and doing professional services. So that's us in a nutshell. And if you have any specific questions on that, I'll be glad to take them at this time, Tim.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate your little intro to your business. I know when I first met, I didn't quite understand what it was that you guys did. I just knew there was a lot of hush hush in the corner and don't ask about it. So as I've known you for, gosh, since 2012, I think is when I started at Heritage Hall with the SBDC, I've kind of come to more of an understanding of what you do, and it's all real fascinating. Let's talk a little bit about how you got into like government contracting. I know, you said you were with the government being military, but some people like try to get into that, but it's so hard or so confusing. Do you have any advice on easy ways to kind of start with government contracting, where to go, how to get help if you're stuck, that sort of thing?
Yeah, this may sound trite, but there's two very important things if you don't have a lot of experience to understand. Number one is it is a unique world with a unique lexicon and verbiage all of its own. And being in the military for 25 years, being a military officer, you just learn it. It becomes second nature. And if you remember, Tamla, we'd run around throwing acronyms around and you'd do your head wondering, what does that mean? You kind of and that's in any business, right? Everybody has their own acronyms. So if you don't have that familiarity, what I would recommend is that you find a mentor and become a protege and let them help you and walk you through the process. If you don't have that opportunity or you don't have that advantage, the U.S. Small Business Administration, the U.S. SBA, which you were part of at one time, they have very good resources on their websites. I mean, again, that sounds very trite, but take advantage of that and read that and, you know, call them and ask questions, and they can point you in the right way as well. But I would caution anybody who's not familiar with this not to do, and wants to get into federal contracting, to not go it alone, because there are big lions and tigers and bears, oh my, out there, called big companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, you know, Northrop Grumman, that will stomp you out. And the best way to protect yourself from that is, number one, have somebody that's already in the space as a sponsor or mentor, and or, you know, take advantage of the small business special categories and let, you know, big Uncle Sam, the federal government, be your sponsor to where they can help you through that process. It's a good question, actually.
Awesome, thank you. So another big topic we've been addressing during our show is what we're calling it now, is how have you had to have any changes during this pandemic in regards to your workspace here locally or for your employees? Because you employ people all across the United States, am I correct?
Yeah, in the world, yes.
In the world. So how have you seen in different parts of the world, I guess, where you've kind of had to adapt to this pandemic?
You know, at first it wasn't really a problem, because of virtual work platforms, right? However, over time, our customers, like any other business, need to be visited, need to be seen. You know, you need to carry the flag, if you will, in your business. And it's been tough, probably the last 2 or 3 months, because we aren't making our quarterly or biannual visits to faraway places for obvious reasons. And it's been hard to keep in contact with the customer base that we have. Yeah, we can do it over Zoom, and we do that. However, that it doesn't suffice or doesn't take the place of an in-person meeting, as you well know. So the pandemic has hurt us that way. The other way it's hurt us, and is hurting us, is that contracts naturally expire. They're usually awarded for like 1 base year plus, say, 3 or 4 option years, right? So you'll have it for 2 to 4 years, sometimes 5 years. But then it expires and you have to recompete it. Well, right now, a lot of those are coming to fruition, some of our biggest ones actually, and the government is freezing the recompete on it. So we're keeping the business, but we're unable to recompete for it. So when this pandemic all lifts, they'll say, okay, and shoot the starting gun, and you know, put everybody under duress to get a bid in and recapture the business. So as time goes by with us in our line of work, the longer that takes, the longer we have to wait to compete ourselves for other business. So it really hurts our financial forecasting. It really hurts our growth. It kind of stopped us right in our tracks. And if we don't win the recompetes and we lose the business, we could literally lose it all at once instead of phasing the business losses and replacing the business losses or contracts over time, if that makes sense. So in other words, worst case scenario, pandemic's lifted, all our contracts go away, which I doubt will happen. But best case scenario is that we win them all back. But normally you can plan for that, you can forecast that, and we're in an election year. So, you know, one of the downsides of federal contracting is politics. We're very sensitive and very dependent upon the political environment. So if one regime comes in and another one leaves, they could change the whole dynamic and cancel all the funding for that. So the pandemic has forced the thought process of using monies that would be marked for defense contracting, for example, for building a border wall or, you know, social programs or what have you. Now, the other thing is, as we lose employees, it's hard to replace them. For some reason in the pandemic times, you would think it would be just the opposite. But a lot of what we're running into is that the people we hire are so highly specialized, so highly educated, and a lot of them have security clearances. Competition is fierce for them. We did take advantage of the PPP loan, and we did take advantage of the EIDL, and we maintained our employment levels, if you will, through all this. But we have to pay that money back just like everybody else that takes advantage of it. but the government encouraged us to take advantage of it, and we did. It has helped, and it's a time value of money, right? And if you pay it back, it's worth more now than it will be, a year from now. So that's a good question. It's just a very strange time. It's a very fluid time. And the biggest threat to us, again, are the politics and the inability to forecast or plan for future business loss and growth. So that's a long answer to your short question. And even hiring here locally. We've got people that have been exposed in the company to the virus and have quarantined and been released. And that's a whole different HR challenge, if you will. And then, hiring people, testing them, and having to ask the questions and what have you. So it really has slowed down for us, the process, a lot like it has for the rest of the folks watching this. And we all have our unique challenges. But primarily, the longer it goes on, the longer the uncertainty for us.
I agree. It is definitely some very interesting and challenging times right now for whatever type of business you're in, where obviously some have been hit harder than others, but I think everybody right now is seeing the impact of this pandemic and what it's doing to our businesses and how are we, pivoting and adapting. Another thing I'd like to mention is you are an amazing single father of 3 kids, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And they are very involved in your business. So what's it like being able to, bring your kids up and show them the ways of being an entrepreneur? I don't even remember how old your youngest is. It's been a while since I've seen her, but I know she's gotten big.
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that because I had that conversation with her over the weekend. Yeah, 3 kids. I have a 30-year-old son, Aaron, 24-year-old son, who just graduated from the University of Hawaii and was commissioned an officer in the Air Force. He's home for a little while because the pandemic has affected him. He majored in Asian languages and speaks Korean and Chinese fluently. So he has to go to military intelligence training, but because it's classified, they can't go in person, right? So, and they can't do it online so he's kind of in limbo. But he's here working in the business, learning the business, and that is a great help. The oldest son did it for a while. You remember Alex, and now he's gone on and started his own business. And then I have a 15-year-old daughter, believe it or not, Tamala, she's 15, in high school, who wants to learn the business because she wants to make lots of money and, have big houses and jewelry and all that stuff, right? Or whatever the girls want at that age. So I'm sorry to laugh, but raising the 2 boys wasn't too bad, but the girls a little bit different, a little bit of a challenge. So I'm kind of partial. So, and a little double standard going on there. But yeah, they've been raised in the business, and my son, he may or may not. He may stay in the military himself for a career. I don't know. But my daughter definitely, the youngest one, has taken to it the most. And she doesn't want to go in the military to get the experience. So I'm that mentor I told you about earlier in this podcast about find yourself one. Well, yeah, it's her. And it has been challenging, as you know, and there's a lot of single moms out there, and we have some in our company. I really empathize with it because, I'm 6'3" and I'm a dude, right? But it's hard. It's hard to work. I teach school here. I'm working on my PhD here. And I got like 4 or 5 jobs. But the good news is that, yeah, at least with one of the children, it's stuck. But they've all been instrumental and worked in the business along the way. And I think that's crucial because it's a good education for the kids to learn really what it takes to run a business. And just because someone owns a business or is an entrepreneur doesn't actually mean that they're rich. They find out they got to pay taxes, they got to pay health care, and that if you make $1,000, then you have to pay 950 of it out in payroll and expenses. So it's a very good life lesson. They learn how to budget, they learn how to plan, they learn how to market, they learn how to execute. So what does all that mean? Entrepreneurism and bringing up your children in a business environment teaches them good self-discipline and actually helps them in school, I think, because they've all done very well academically. Because when you have to work for a living and do things to make money, you learn to be very accurate, right? And you learn to be very good at what you do. And you learn to tolerate and be tolerant because as every entrepreneur out there that might be watching this or watches it knows, if you only do business with people you like, you don't have a whole lot of business. You learn to be adaptable and flexible as well. But yeah, they're great kids. Of course, they're mine. And you know, you had a baby when you're here. I'm sure big too now. So, and you're going to open the environment as well. So thanks for asking. Kind of like old home week.
Yeah, I just remember her running around the office, and it's always a great opportunity for kids to see more real life experiences. I didn't really have that growing up, and kind of got into it around, I went to college for it. It was kind of a new world, but when you grow up in it, you can see the challenges and the successes, and learn how from your parents on how to navigate that. So I think that's a wonderful opportunity that they have, and really neat experience that you're giving your kids. And I'm sure they'll appreciate it as they get older.
Yeah, and one of the, it's an interesting dovetail here in that Murray State touts, as you know, being part of the organization yourself, experiential learning. And really that's what it boils down to. I mean, they're really getting experiential learning. My son, as he waits for his active duty orders, is working on his MBA, and he's taking a finance class. Well, I have him do the financials here twice a week, and he's zipping through that like no problem. Professor asking, well, I do it every day. And that's the advantage of, allowing internships as well. So if anybody out there is watching and knows a student or an individual that wants a entrepreneurial internship, by all means, have them get in touch with us here in Heritage Hall. We'll be glad to talk to them.
Perfect. I know we are getting close to our time to end, but I wanted to ask just one last final question. Since you have been in the industry for a while, what is your one piece of advice you would give somebody who is just thinking about starting any type of business?
Ensure you have two things: tremendous drive and good capitalization. I know you asked for one thing, but they go hand in hand. The one thing that'll demoralize any entrepreneur, no matter how much drive they have, is just running out of money. And before you start, just have a good plan. I said it earlier, and it sounds trite again to use that word, but plan your work and work your plan. Just stick to it. Don't give up. And if you have a good plan, you'll have good financing. So, yeah, and I know it's counterintuitive for entrepreneurs to want to sit down and write plans. But there's a good one I used at Goldman Sachs. I went to school there. I was fortunate enough to be part of their 10,000 small businesses. It's called Live Plan, Live plan. It's just a template. You fill it out, and it does it all for you. Something along those lines, I would say just make sure you walk into a bank with a good plan. Otherwise, it's just another good idea that they hear about all day long. But if they know that you've got a plan, that you've got a good understanding of what needs to be done of marketing, sales, finance, accounting, and you prove it with the numbers, you've got a very good chance of getting that capitalization. So start out with good documentation, start out with a good corporate structure, and all that, again, boils down to one thing, and that's a good business plan out of the gate.
Well, thank you, Scott, so much for joining us this morning. And I've learned so much even more about what you do. So I can actually, check that box and say, I know exactly more of what you do. And it's not just this unknown area in the corner where you used to work.
Yeah.
But again, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and have a wonderful day.
My pleasure. Thank you, Tom. Bye-bye.